Okay, so I don't have a script in front of me. I don't have anything here. This is just going to be a little bit off the cuff, and it's mostly because it's a serious topic, and I don't want to like mess anything up about it. I don't want to like overproduce it or something. But it's something that I'm going to need to talk about because if I don't, I won't be able to make videos about Commander without getting it off of my chest. So yeah, welcome. I'm not going to do my normal intro. My name is Lucy. I'm a little loony, you know what it is, but I'm kind of playing it straight today. If you want, like how I talk, if I like having like themes with this kind of thing, I'm calling this video probably Backstage Babbling and talking. Like it's weird for this to be the first one, but it's the first like real serious thing that I felt like that I need to talk about, really. So if you haven't pieced it together by the title of the video or by how serious the video, like the concept is, I'm going to be talking about the bans and the fallout of the bans itself in Commander specifically for Magic the Gathering. I'm going to try to be as understanding as possible and neutral in all fronts and try to cover all of it. I'm probably not going to be editing this much, except to like cut my pauses and like anything like long in between if I have to cut that out. I want to be upfront. I want to be very real here, because it is kind of serious. And while I do want to kind of have this space just to be like a me and you thing, where I can just talk directly to you without any of the goofy nonsense happening, I don't really want to have it be like a hard line stance of serious, you know? But this one kind of has to be as the first one, because if I don't like talk about this, I'm going to lose my mind. I need to just let my thoughts out into the void. So starting from the beginning, a few weeks ago, I think at this point it was a few weeks ago, it might be a week and a half by now. Um, the Commander Rules Committee at the time banned 4 cards from the Commander format. They were Nadu Winged Wisdom, which I won't be mentioning from here on out because everybody kind of unanimously agrees that that guy was a butthole and probably deserved to get banned. So nobody's really talking about that one. He was also like a $3 card when he got banned, if that, so that wasn't really a problem. But the other 3 were Dockside Extortionist, Mana Crypt, and Jeweled Lotus. These were all cards that facilitated faster games of Magic, and the wording of the rules committee was specifically that they wanted to stop these sorts of things, because Wizards has started printing more and more very expensive commanders that the reason that they're expensive is because they have a huge gameplay impact when they hit the battlefield. They kind of hinted at Voja, the new one from Karlov Manor rather. And that was one of the ones that they like kind of they didn't say specifically, but it was one of their hinted at ones, and I'm 90% sure Wizards is going to print something like that again. They had a solid idea of it, and they did talk about how, well, if we're banning fast mana, why aren't we banning Soul Ring? And Soul Ring kind of like is the reason Commander exists in sort of a way, whereas like Soul Ring is like a card that like has been a pillar of the format since its inception, whereas something like Mana Crypt is kind of more on the sidelines. And 1 mana versus 0 mana is huge. But you could also talk, why aren't we talking about Ancient Tomb? Why aren't we talking about, I don't know, Lotus Petal? That's 0 mana, make a mana that can be recurred. There's a lot of things to talk about there. But I am not a member of the rules committee for multiple reasons, as we'll get into later. But those cards were banned, and from a laywoman's perspective, I think these bans are fine. I think they are necessary from a casual perspective to have games be fair on a level where, like, when you're talking about when you're talking about like even local game stores. I'm talking about like you go out of town, you stop at a local game store, you want to get some games of Commander in, you want the ban list to be like, here's where we're starting from, and if we want to play something better, we can rule zero in banned cards. Like, I don't agree necessarily with people doom saying about Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus when you can still play with them. They are still cards that people, if you want to play at a higher power level, you can. Uh, with an asterisk. There's a bit of a difference there that I have to get into as well. But overall, I think these were fine hits. However, I don't think before we go into any of the other stuff that happened afterwards, I don't think how this was rolled out was a good idea. You have 3 years of just silence where you basically like. I think the last thing we heard about was like consecrated Sphinx was being talked about being banned. Like that was like a rumor that we heard, and it was like we didn't really get a lot of information here. It was just like nonsense, like not nonsense. It was just like completely out of nowhere, hits everybody like a truck, just bans like out of nowhere. And it's like that's not good. Like when you're trying to when you're trying to keep confidence in your card game and in your like community, that not that these things won't be banned, but that like you'll be good communicators and that there's a good amount of trust between the rules committee itself and the player base. There wasn't really any there. Where it was more just like they just put it out there as like ripping a band-aid off, which it might have been necessary, but all at the same time, you could have just hit I think the ones that people would have not unanimously agreed with, I do think that some people would have disagreed with this one, and people who say otherwise can fight me on it. Uh, but Nadu and Dockside were both safe. They were very safe. They were explicitly designed for Commander, and they were cards that were heavily abusable. And only certain decks could use them, and they had weird gameplay implications. Just like not good at all. Not good. Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus, on the other hand, are a bit different. Jeweled Lotus was also made for Commander, but I think it doesn't enable as much like weird combos and infinites that Dockside does. I'm sure there are some. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be like this has no possible interactions. Like no, I'm sure that there's something gross you could do with it. But on average, it was just ramping out your commander faster. Same with Mana Crypt, but Mana Crypt has the same problem Soul Ring does, that it can lead up to insane starts and just like eh. Now, any excuse that people are like, hey, this one is fine because it lets me play my 6 mana commander of like janky, my janky 6 mana commander. And I'm like, well, yeah, but the decks that are playing like the really efficient 3, 4 mana commanders can use these cards too. It's not like only the janky cards are allowed to. It's not like a companion where you get a kind of really cool benefit, but you have to build your deck a certain way. No, it's just free. Um, so I think these bans were fine, but I think they really needed to be the community needed to be waned on it a little bit. Maybe hit like Dockside and Nadu first. Say, hey, we're taking a look at Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus. We're gonna get some feedback over the next couple cons, especially like in the next few months, even at the start of like mid September when these started getting rolled out, there were a bunch of cons coming out. There's MagicCon Vegas coming up. There's SCG cons. Like there's a few. PAX Unplugged is going to be coming up soon. All of these are like events that will definitely probably provide data to the rules. Well, would have provided data to the rules committee, and that would have been fine. But and well they released it all at once. They released all 4 cards. They're banned, and people didn't take well to it. Now, I do think that for some people, it was definitely like a I don't agree with these bans fundamentally, and that's fine. I think like disagreeing with decisions is kind of what breeds discussion and brings just keeping like a having an opinion about this game. However, when it started getting gross is when things got a little iffy. Like the the obvious one was just like the gross comments that people saw on Commander at Home videos, and everybody was targeting Olivia Gobert Hicks. She was one of the members of the rules committee, and unfortunately, a woman. On her, like, not unfortunately a woman. Period. I like women, but unfortunately, uh, jerks on the internet like to target women because they are easy pickings. They think. And as it turns out, people were also targeting members of the Commander Advisory Group. Most notably the marginalized ones, which is weird. Who'da thunk? Anyway, but those people were receiving death threats, they were receiving doxing, and it's a bit of a different story when you get credible threats of violence when you are a very public figure who goes to conventions and are signed on to do panels and such at like MagicCons. It gets really scary. And like these were just people all volunteering their time to make a format better, at least attempt to make it better. So it was rough. And that was going on for days. It was rough. Then last week, I think at this point, by the time this video comes up, it'll be last week. Um, Last week, the 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 control of the commander format shifted from uh the rules committee to Wizards of the Coast, which is not. It's a change. I'm not gonna say like people are being like it's an end of an era and now it's gonna be filled with nonsense that Wizards prints into the format. And it's like we've been living in that world for years now. Like since Commander since like I would argue 2018, I think there were some pretty gross cards there. But like even like 2019 was when Dockside came out, and that was one of the first like huge ones. Then Commander Legends had Hull Breacher and Jeweled Lotus. Like they've been printing nonsense cards into Commander ever since they didn't have control of it. And frankly, people who get paid to do this kind of thing and paid to think about how the format works is probably better off than people who don't get paid to do this thing at all. They just, they're volunteers. It's weird. Um, and that's it's a weird thing to say. Like it's the end of an era of Commander. It's going to be different. Necessarily just because like the people in control are different. I can't walk up to Wizards of the Coast as a person and be like, "Hey, I don't agree with this thing," or "This is my feedback." I can walk up to theoretically walk up. I haven't met any of these people in person, but you can walk up to somebody like Gavin Verhey or Mark Rosewater and be like, "Hey, this is a problem I have." And they can process that, but there's no guarantees. Like these people just work for a greater entity, and as soon as like an executive type person gets wind that like, hey, Commander is we control it and can control its banned or not, like it's only a matter of time before some executive sees dollar signs, and that's I hate to say it, that sucks, but like that's the world we live in right now. Like, I don't like it, but saying that saying it's going to be 100% fine is not. Yeah, I think that's eh, it yeah. Saying that it's gonna be 100% fine is just like it's not wrong. Like you could be right, but like there's a lot to be cynical about. But on the other hand, Wizards having control of the format uh is kind of a good thing as well. They have a lot more access to data, like Magic Online data. Like Magic Online has tons of Commander games going on every day. Because it's a really good way to play it from what I've seen. I don't get to play much often on there, but I would love to. And it's one of those things where it's like they get plenty of games on there and they have all the data of that the rules committee did not. Um, and I think it's going to be fine. I think a lot of people are decrying Magic being dead, and it's like, the format's dying. And it's like, no, well, as we knew it is. But on the other hand, like, with the same rule, with the same reasoning that I can be like, hey, if you wanted to play with these banned cards, you can, as long as the people around you are okay with it. If WotC makes a dumb decision when they do this, like, you can say no. This is a community driven format first, and like it's really what we make it. Like it's not a real format, like, I don't like saying that as in, like, it's not real. Only official formats can be official. And it's like, nah, no. But like, it's not. It only really works because we as a community come together and say, like, yes, this is what I want to do with my time. If you don't have that, then like there's no format. So like I don't know. It's a lot. And I know I'm kind of rambling at this point. I didn't even mention about how the commander advisory group they weren't advised about the decisions that the rules committee made. And the rules committee did make some very like they made some good points. It's like, well, we don't want people to, on accident people insider trading. We don't want it leaking out. um, we don't want like other people getting harassed by this. And it's like, that's fair, but like, and it also sounds like they weren't really talked on, like, nobody asked them about, like decision to give the format over to Wizards, which is a little bit more iffy because it's like, that's 0 for 2 on talking to the specific group that you ask to advise you on things and you didn't. That's the whole purpose of the group. Why didn't you do that? But I can tell why. It's like they were scared. They were scared that something would go out. It's possible that they let too many people into the advisory group, and it was just like, well, we can't tell anybody because what if somebody leaks it out? What if we can't trust anybody? Paranoia can do a lot of things to a person. It's just it's a lot, y'all. Like this th- this has been one of the things that's like it's been really hard to work on videos and stuff as I've been like sitting down and like I've been trying to work on scripts and being like, yeah, commander, great. But this has been kind of nagging at my mind where it's like this is the community. Like we saw like we can say as a community that these people don't belong. But like the people that made death threats are the same people that were probably like in support of other people before. Like all it takes is one bad day for someone to just completely reveal who they are. And that's the thing. Uh a lot of bad times reveal who people are. And that's just kind of like that's kind of the lesson that we've learned here. And we've learned how a lot of people are recently, and that's not something that you always want to see. Don't like it that much. But it happened anyway, and we've seen the worst in our community, and we are trying as a group to move past it. Some people are hypothesizing that Wizards might roll back some of these bans that came out, and I really, really hope they don't. And this is speaking as someone who hasn't sold off of their I do have a Mana Crypt and a Jeweled Lotus that mostly I pulled randomly, but I do have genuine copies, and it's like I didn't sell it just because like I haven't gotten around to it yet. But like even if they unbanned it, and I get hypothetically I get a lot of money in this regard, but like I don't want that because then these people that showed us the worst parts of themselves, they win. Like they get what they wanted. They bullied the rules committee out of it, and like this is what they wanted at the end of the day. They wanted their pieces of cardboard to be worth money. And like I understand like the monetary value is like a huge deal, but it's like not I don't feel comfortable talking about it too much because you can't I don't like being like it is cardboard that you really should like be like, "Hey, I should be expecting a loss if I'm spending $100 on cardboard. That's me. It might not be worth that much in a few years. Bans and stuff happen, but like, there's also the justification of like bans and stuff happen, sure, but like, there weren't bans in this format for like 3 years, and it's a lot. And I wish I could be like super optimistic and be like, yeah, everything's gonna work out fine. Yay. Hey, happy cartoon woman. It's like, but I can't. I can't genuinely say with my full chest and be like, everything is going to be fine because I don't know. And that's the problem. We traded knowing what's going to happen and who is in charge for Wizards of the Coast being in charge. And I don't know what's gonna come of that. And that kind of scares me. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of scary, y'all. But regardless, I do think that even if Wizards is in control, I do think at the end of the day, what makes Magic is the gathering. It is the friends that we make along the way. And I know that sounds really cheesy and corny, but like I am a cartoon anime woman talking to you through YouTube. I'm that's my operatus man operatus op, whatever words operandus bandai. I don't think that is. That sounds like Bandai. Mm, ADHD kicking in. Anyway, um, everything's going to be fine, everybody. The game is going to be fine, even if like the company tries to milk it for all it's worth. At the end of the day, what makes it important is we have fun with this, and the gathering is the most important thing. And that's what makes this game great. Even if you don't play Commander, even if you don't play like CDH is a whole different issue. I might have to make a whole video on that. Um, this one's already going to like 22 minutes, and I don't know how much I'm going to be able to cut from here. What's important is this game is just what we make it. Magic is a fantastic game, and most of you, I hope, if you're following me, the random anime woman, the random cartoon woman online, I assume you're nice people. So I think we're gonna be fine, even if Wizards does something gross and stupid. I do think that like, even we will withstand it. We have withstood worse, and I'm sure that we will be fine. We have seen the worst. We have seen a very bad half of the community today, and I say today, but it's in like the last couple of weeks, and we will likely see worse ones in the future, just by nature of existence. But I think we'll be fine. I think so.